are working their way into the building. So, but just out of curiosity, first of all, how did you guys find out about the program today? Did you hear about it through our website? Raise your hand if you saw it on the website. Okay, all right. And then from our Miller Room emailing list, anybody? Steve, you got it from our Miller Room emailing list, and yeah, you did. Okay, and then how many people found out about it through like the Grinding Gazette or one of our newspapers? Or?
Great.
Okay. Raise your hand if you heard about it through Gray. Awesome. Anybody else heard about it through a different source?
Just my
Daughter, okay.
Through Make Music Long Beach.
Make Music Long Beach. Anybody else? Anything else?
Daily Breeze Canada.
The Daily Breeze, awesome. Anything else?
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, nice. You put it on Eventbrite, right? There you go. Okay, anything else? Awesome. So we're really getting out there. We're glad to hear that. Just a few housekeeping things. If you have a cell phone, don't forget to silence it or turn it off so we don't interrupt our panelists during the program. We're also going to be doing a live feed over here, so if you
In library, we appreciate all of you joining us today for this incredible
We are celebrating African American Music Appreciation Month, and this is our first in hopefully a series on culture and concerts. We're very pleased to bring you a special discussion on the topic of women in jazz, moderated by Greg Johnson, of Hannibal Media Group, and the Arts Council of Long Beach. We are also joined by a very special guest panel of talented industry professionals from around the greater Long Beach and LA area, music and entertainment scene, who will be bringing us a vibrant afternoon of music, conversation, and culture as we honor the powerful legacy of African American music. After this discussion concludes, please join us for a free live jazz concert outside with the Tatiana Tate Band, opened by DJ Jasper. This event is free and open to all in celebration of community, culture, and the rhythm of history, and is one of the many programs that we offer here at the Long Beach Public Library. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Greg Johnson, who will then introduce the panel to you. Thank you.
All right. How are you today? So we've got all the housekeeping rules. There's just one more rule that I'd like to say, and you know I am a Pentecostal in my faith, and so I need to hear you howl back at me, you know, and let me know that you're here and that you're enjoying yourself. So are you here? Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Amen. You know, when we first started planning this, I was, you know, with Jessica and Kathy De Leon, the chief librarian of the whole Long Beach public library system. I'm like, ooh, please be quiet. We're in the library. They're like, we don't do that anymore. We have programming and talks and everything like that. Thank you all so much for coming out to our experience today, our immersive music experience. Jessica has already explained to you that we have our panel discussion today. We have a reading list, which we have the reading list, but then Angela there. First of all, give Angela a wonderful round of applause. She hooked this room up. When I came by yesterday, I could not believe it. You know how she has really set the colors and so many pieces of literature. As a arts advocate, you know, I've worked in radio for many, many years, and you know, now I'm an arts and culture advocate, and that's the YouTube right there. Yeah. What was I saying? You know, it's really interesting when you begin to figure out different ways you can present music, and what we're doing a lot of times in the Arts Council for Long Beach, on which I sit on the board along with the legendary Violet Brown is here. You know, we talk about art all the time, and we talk about public art. Public art being the murals that you see in public spaces, the sculptures and everything, things that are free and accessible to the public for us to enjoy without charge. And I'm always like, well, music isn't art, you know, and when we present our big festivals and parks and everything, that is an expression of public art. And that's what we're doing on today. But we wanted to also take a moment to be a little more cerebral about our presentation today. That's why we have this panel discussion with these esteemed aficionados of music and culture. We have a Spotify playlist that we've curated for the experience. We have a reading list, and we're going to cap it all off with a fantastic live concert performance on the outside with Tatiana Tate. Is that you back there, Tatiana?
Yes.
Can you come, please? Ladies and gentlemen, Tatiana Tate. So listen, you know, when you're serving on the Arts Council for Long Beach, you are exposed to every conceivable avenue of arts and culture in the city. Every race, every flavor, and it's just really, really fantastic. And when I first became a part of the Arts Council, this young lady was like in high school, you know, writing charts and stuff for big bands and stuff like that. And so she's truly a prodigy. And you know, I love the NPR Tiny Desk. I don't know if you all have like my I love it. So I had this, well, I'm going to say it for my age. I had discovered this artist, rap artist named Doechii. So I want to NPR Tiny Desk, Dochi is on there, and the look at the horn player is Tatiana Tate. Like what? You know. To top it off, a few weeks later, I'm talking to my former boss, Stevie Wonder, and I find out that they're about to go out and play some dates, and Tatiana Tate is playing with Stevie Wonder. I'm like, man, holy moly. So now, you know, when you begin to study Tatiana Tate and her music, you can see that she's an ascending superstar in our business here. And that's, we're really, really honored to have her. She is a daughter of Long Beach. Is it Long Beach Poly? Or?
Polly.
Yeah, Long Beach Poly. Look, I'm from San Diego. And my brother always teases me because most of my career has been in LA. He's like, man, you from LA, what you doing down in Long Beach? I'm semi-retired, started my own business out here, you know, we're doing this arts and culture thing. But you know, you'll be in conversations like this here, people say, so what high school did you go to? You don't say the right one, they kind of look at you, you know, kind of crazy. But she is, if y'all are from Long Beach, she is your daughter. She's rising. Nothing but good things are on the way for this young lady. We're honored to have you here today.
Thank you.
So, let's get down to business. You met Tatiana Tate, yes?
Yes.
Our next panelists, I'm going to give them an opportunity to speak a little bit more about them, so I'm just going to give you the headlines. We've assembled a really outstanding panel for you to really deep dive into the essence of women in jazz, soulful women in jazz. And when I tell you this is a Hall of Fame panel, because sometimes I'm looking at the papers I'm typing, I'm like, good grief, this is off the chain right here. So, you know, and so first I'm going to start all the way on the end here. So, how many of you are familiar with this center, this epicenter of arts and culture in Southern California, if not the doggone whole nation, if not the world, called Leimert Park?
Yeah.
Well, they have a jazz festival, Leimert Park Jazz Festival. This is the executive director of the Leimert Park Jazz Festival. She's an attorney, a culture advocate, and just an all-around cool woman. Her name is Diane Robertson. We can't have a well-rounded discussion without, you know, a journalist, critic, person who, you know, all my years, and those of you who are my friends here from the industry, I just want to say this is actually for us music legends and icons here. Listen, in our side of the business, when we look at people who can critically analyze the art that comes out of these record companies, right? It's like there's only a few people. There's people who write, but then there's people who like have this deep, ethereal understanding of the art that is coming out of our community. And this is one here. And I know he's semi-retired and moved way away from the metropolitan, you know, the metropolitan area, but I am so honored that he said, yeah, G, I'm coming, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, A. Scott Galloway. He's the guy that writes liner notes. You've probably seen, there's probably a few books in here he probably has written forwards or something, you know, he's just that guy. Thank you all for coming. We have the next one that we're looking for. We'll shout her name out now, but when she arrives, she's very close. We'll let her introduce herself, and just really, really honored to have her come. She's the Senior Executive Director of the LA chapter of the Recording Academy. That's the Grammy Awards. So you see we have some heavy hitters up in here. That's a really, really beautiful thing. And her name is Kiana Conley Kinross, so she'll be here in just a minute. All right. Anything you want to say there, Tatiana?
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my band. They're some of the best musicians in the industry. We have Rachel, we have Quentin, we have Ramel, and then a big shout out to the person who is the reason why I ended up being on the Tiny Desk, who is also there with me playing drums. We have D. Simone in the back. in music. I'm happy to be here. I'm blessed to be here. I didn't know I was going to talk, so I'm going to try to say all the right things.
I just want to say that I've been a lover of music all of my life, and have been very blessed and fortunate to work in the retail side, the radio side. I played drums, started writing at Urban Network magazine, which was an industry trade, and from there I got the biggest blessing of my writing career, which was writing liner note essays for CDs and compilations and that sort of thing, reissues. And which gave me an opportunity to have my work right there with the music. So if you go to my website, ascottgalloway.net, you can learn more about me if you wish, and you'll see my credits and kind of my philosophy about music. I love all styles of music, but jazz, thanks to my dad, was my first love. So I'm very honored to be here with these lovely panelists. Diane, who I know, and Tatiana, I'm just met, and Greg is my dude, so moving forward. Thank you for having me.
You want to give him an applause? Hi, good afternoon. I'm Diane Robertson, and I call myself an accidental jazz festival producer because this was never the plan. As Gregory mentioned, I am a lawyer. TV production lawyer, and when I moved to Limerick Park in 2014, I became active in the community, and one of the first things that I did was produce a block party in the summer of 2015. We did that annually and rebranded it and called it the Limerick Park Jazz Festival in 2020 after introducing a small jazz stage to the block party in 2018 and 2019, which really resonated with our guests. And 2020, as you all might remember, was an interesting year for everyone. Due to COVID, we could not produce it in person, so I did not want to lose my momentum. And I produced a virtual Limerick Park Jazz Festival that year, and it wasn't bad. I'd never done anything like that before, but it gave me an opportunity to get the brand out. This was really rooted in community, and of course you can't replicate community in an online environment. So I was thrilled when we were able to do it in person for the first time in 2021, and we've been growing slowly but steadily ever since. And we started out 2021 with 900 guests, and last year we had about 3,000. And we don't know where we'll be this year, but just a plug. Hopefully it's not shameless. The festival is always held on the last Saturday in August. This year that's August 30th, which happens to be Labor Day weekend. And it's on the rooftop parking deck of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall, if you know where that is. Go to our website, www.limerickparkjazzfestival.org, and you can find out about the festival as well as some year-round programming that we do, which includes a monthly Sunday jazz series. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kiana Conley Akira.
Pardon my tardiness. I apologize. I got stuck on 405, so found my way. But yes, my name is Kiana Conley Aquino. I am the senior executive director for the Los Angeles chapter of the Recording Academy, which is most known for being the home of the Grammys. I am not a jazz expert, but I am a jazz fan like all of us in this room, and so I am happy to be asked by Greg to participate today. Looking forward to just being a part of the conversation. Definitely, there's some Grammy-nominated, Grammy Award-winning artists within the genre that are well known and beloved, and that I work with daily. So I'm looking forward to sharing their perspective. And also sitting alongside my old friend Scott Galloway. It's been ages since we see each other. But also, I asked our my amazing colleagues in the awards and the membership department to give me some data. So because I know we're all jazz heads here, I'm hopefully going to be able to integrate some Grammy data for you around this beautiful genre and the women that have come to represent our organization and this genre as well, that are local in the LA area. So thank you again for having me here, and happy to be a part of the conversation.
Let's start with you here. Let me just ask you.
Do we have to start with you?
Let me just ask you, like, historically speaking, I mean, even though jazz may not be your favorite genre or your first genre, you know, historically, when you think about jazz, when you think about women in jazz, who comes to mind?
Yes, so I think for me, just explanation, we have genre managers within our organization that really focus on cultivating the community, current legacy, as well as in honoring those that might have passed before us. And so they're definitely the experts. But giving you the Kiana version of that, you know, definitely, I think of Ella, you know, when I think locally and people that have really impacted me and have been really great in the work that I've done with them, Layla Hathaway, Let Us See, these are younger voices that I feel like are well known and well respected within the genre that have been really important to the work that we've done at the Academy in terms of sustaining and extending the lifeblood. I have to honor younger talent, but Samara Joy, you know, has been a great name for the community as a young woman of color, young Black woman within the genre. Esperanza Spalding, we all remember that, you know, part of her big moment in terms of becoming more of a household name, regardless of genre preference, was primarily because of her winning the Best New Artist over Justin Bieber
That part.
that year, which says a lot to our membership's regard and value, you know, of this art form. Still, you know. So those are some of the names that kind of stand out to me. But yeah, that's my answer.
Tatiana, how about you?
Dang, I knew it was going to be
Okay, so when I think of like women in music or in jazz specifically, the first person I think of, if y'all are not hip to, how many people are hip to Cora Bryant? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, so she's basically a legendary African-American female trumpeter. She was one of the few Black women to travel overseas playing jazz. She studied with Dizzy, she sang, she wrote big band charts. She did kind of pretty much anything that a man was doing at the time, but she didn't get a lot of notoriety because not only was she a woman, but because she was a Black woman. And so I was fortunate enough to meet her. I think it was back in 2017, and we were at the world stage, and I got to meet her and I got to perform with her, you know, and then a few years later she passed, and then they honored her before that at Central Avenue Jazz. So that's someone that's really important to me because at that time I didn't really see anybody who looked like me who played a horn. I'm heavily influenced by 70s. I love Cynthia from Sly and the Family Stone, and so as doing my research through that, I, you know, discovered Cora Bryant, and, you know, that was just someone that I could latch on to as I navigated my career. So she's a big influence. Someone I also really love, the drummer in me loves Sheila E. She is killing it. And everybody knows once upon a time I thought drums was my whole life. Yeah, so I love Sheila E. I love Beyonce. I mean, that's as high as it gets in terms of the professionalism, the level of execution. If anybody's ever seen her live, you know she gives you 1,000%. And I think it's really inspiring, especially in today's age where I think because we don't have a lot of artist development, a lot of the current creatives are missing that kind of pizzazz. But Beyonce and some others are still holding on to the true tradition of not just only being a musician, but being an entertainer and giving them experience. So those are just a couple of women that I really like.
I want to point this message to you, Diane, that she mentioned Cora Bryant. Miss Cora, I actually met her while I was working at KJLH Radio, and I had no idea she was this big trumpeter. I knew this woman for years, and never, you know, she just would come around the radio station in Lamert Park and everything, and I happened to be in Lamert Park chopping it up with Miss Cora, and my first college radio show, I did Black music from the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So I was Louis Jordan and the Timpani Five. You just name it, I'm there for it. And when she started speaking, I saw her in the films, you know, and I knew who she was, but now I really knew who she was, you know. What do you think, Diane, are some of the hurdles that someone from Clara Bryant's, we're talking the 40s, what kind of hurdles did she have to overcome in order to be established, and why did it take so long for her to get like her flowers?
So I'll have to be very transparent. I'm not aware of who she is. I will look her up though. Yeah. But I think just in general, when you talk about Black women artists, Black women in general, regardless of the industry they're in, really.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that, you know, the hurdles are the same probably in all industries. Being undervalued, underestimated, undercompensated, fighting for a seat at the table, fighting to get your voice heard in a world that is sexist, racist, classist. So I think that I think it's the same that a lot of Black women have experienced throughout the generations until today.
Scott, now, you know, give us your favorite old school, vintage jazz artist.
Old school? You know, some might not have heard of this lady. I really loved her as an arranger, composer, musician. Her name is Carla Blake. Just an amazing, amazing talent. We lost her a year or two ago. And for the most part, you know, like Kiana said, you know, I grew up, it was the ladies. It was Ella, it was the singers. Ella, Sarah, Carmen, and all of that. And it took a while for me to really become aware of female musicians. And I had to go back in my studies to learn about Clara Bryant and Hazel Scott, and Dorothy Donegan, and so many other people, you know. But Carla, right in that space when I was, I'd say, high school going into college, Carla recorded for a label called ECM, which was fairly avant-garde, a lot of freedom, and she also had her own label called Watt Records that was distributed through ECM. So this woman blew my mind because she would do things like lead a group called the Liberation Music Orchestra, bring musicians from all different parts of the world, just creating these tapestries of very socio-politically connected works, you know, and then she did a lot of her own work. She other records of her own, and she worked in everything from large ensembles to small, and she did solo work as well. And so there are many that I found out about later, but for some reason, probably because through ECM, I was already into Pat Metheny group and Jack DeJohnette, who was a great jazz drummer, you know, that Chick Corea. They had so many great musicians on that label that I was kind of drawn to things that were on that label. So I would say Carla was the first female musician that really clicked with me as somebody that was, you know, fully rounded as composer, arranger, leader, and keyboardist. And she did piano, organ, everything. She's amazing.
You know, my favorite, my latest story about Hazel Scott, who you just mentioned, right here in Long Beach, I was intersecting with the Long Beach Symphony, and we began to talk about, you know, piano concertos and whatnot. And when I showed Kelly Ruggiero the video of Hazel Scott, she was like, "Holy moly, who is this lady?" You know, it was really interesting that someone that established in, you know, in music really wasn't aware of our history, you know.
When you get into the Black women in jazz, then it's a whole nother story. And Hazel at least had the showwomanship of playing two pianos at once, being in music clips, you know, with Selena or I forget which Hollywood star, but she was something else. And as we go through this discussion, I'm sure we'll be talking about diversity of the things that women had to do, or the things that brought more attention to them. They couldn't just be the great musician a lot of times, you know. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, there's so many things that we can talk about.
Sure. You know, I wanna just try to, as we're in this space currently, there's so much going on politically, socially, you know, and we know that music is always a soundtrack, right, to liberation, to revolution, and all of that. And I am always, still to this day, fascinated by Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit. Talk a little bit about how jazz and how women in jazz speak to political consciousness. Just as you think about it, like who out there do you think really had a message? And in that track in particular, I mean, that's a song that speaks out against lynching of the time. And it's still powerful to this day. I mean, when I watched the clip the other day, and I was like, dang, boy, just her vocalisms and everything, you could feel it. You know, speak to how music and how black women in jazz affect our social consciousness.
Sure, I'll begin. Everyone's okay with that. I think what stands to me, particularly around that song and that artist and her journey and its relevance from its time through today is most obvious to me in the recent sort of honoring of her life and her story that you would see with Andra Day, right? Who is an artist now that portrayed her and her story, and I think there was you felt the same sort of pain, passion, necessity for expression for that song as it was portrayed in that period, that representation of that time and in that period piece as another piece of visual media. But you also, because of when it was released and what was happening in our political climate, particularly around black people, the continuation of black women needing to be protected, needing to be revered, needing to be celebrated, and our stories, needing to tell our own stories ourselves, and Andra doing that. Her performance of it also echoed to me the pain of what's being expressed in the song as well, right? In other words, you felt in watching her portray Billie, she was also telling her own story. She was also a part of the unfortunate cyclical expression and experience, you know, of black women in music, particularly in a genre where you are someone who is kind of put in a position where you are desired, but yet in a way that you're being told how to be presented. You're over sexualized. Your voice, your independent voice, and your independent thought on those that you want to be a part of your experience, those that you see in your creative space, your fans, the people that you want to get this message out, is still being limited and being told to kind of stay within its place, stay within its lane. And knowing Andra Day personally, knowing her story, even as an artist herself, portraying an artist she loves, you know, I think that was cathartic for her to have that role, and I think it brought that message forward because you had someone so relevant and current telling the same story again and again, you know. So I think that's what resonated with me, particularly around the message of Strange Fruit, and just at that time, I think it was also encouragement for black women, period, but particularly black women in music, to continue to be their own voice, whether it's something people agree with or not. And I think there have been other expressions. I'm forgetting the artist. She's like right here, has a similar voice, shorter hair, and she's like an obvious name, and I'm like, ooh. But she has been seen sometimes politically on the other side of black opinion. What's the artist's name? You know what I'm talking about.
Are you talking about back in the day?
No, I'm talking about like recently. Oh gosh. No. I'm thinking of she actually performed at the last inauguration of Trump.
Oh.
You know, someone just said, you know, I'm thinking about. Oh, I can't.
performed at
She's an
Trump's
R&B
or nothing?
artist, yes. And
Oh,
Chrisette.
yeah, Chrisette.
You know,
Michelle.
regardless of the position that you stand on it, Chrisette is an artist, is a black woman who made a choice that wasn't celebrated, that wasn't accepted, that she kind of got burned for, you know. But you know, that makes you question, like, why was she in that position that she had to make that choice? I think it's just reflective in the journey of being able to be an artist, to be of unpopular opinion. So anyway, I hope that's not too all around the world and around and back, but that's sort of how that sits with me.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to add that, you know, Andra Day took her stage name from Billie Holiday.
Mhm.
So that's how influential she was to her. And Strange Fruit, there's only one other song that I'll mention in a sec, but I mean, I don't think there is any other song that is more powerful from a black female jazz or just singer, songwriter, period. And just, you know, on a slightly lighter note, I remember a show I saw at the, well, I mean, you know, once she was persecuted for that song, she was told not to, if you perform that song on this stage, we're hauling you off to jail. And she would get up there and do it. So, I mean, you all know that history, right? So, oh my goodness, what did I say? Billie Holiday, Andra Day.
You were talking
Oh, the lighter side. I saw a show at Disney Hall with Al Jarreau, Dee Dee Bridgewater, opening act. And Dee Dee had just put out an album that was a tribute to Billie Holiday. And she did all the, you know, fun, nice stuff, whatever. She closed her set with Strange Fruit. And I was like, how are you going to do that to Al? You know how hard Al Jarreau is going to have to work when he comes on the stage to get us back into Swingsville, you know? But the other song that I was going to mention that's kind of as powerful, close to as powerful, was made famous by Nina Simone, and that's For Women.
Yes.
That would be the close to the equivalent, you know, stereotypes of black women. And that song has been done and theatricized and everything by so many. And the sad thing is that both of these are things that continue on to this day. We're both saying the cyclical aspects of this. So, yeah, no, that's my thoughts on it. You have anything to add?
Just some other women jazz artists who come to mind. Obviously, Nina Simone, I was going to say For Women. Not as heavy as that, but heavy in their own right. Two of her other songs that come to mind are Mississippi Goddamn and Young, Gifted, and Black. And then we have Abby Lincoln. You know, all of these powerful, powerful women who understood that art is activism. And they were truth tellers, and their lived experiences drove the music that they shared with us. And it was challenging, with, you know, the themes of struggle and survival that they and people who look like them were experiencing, but also triumphant in our resilience, our determination, our hopes and dreams and joys. So that's what comes up for me.
So I just wanted to echo a little bit of what Diane said. When I think of Nina Simone as a whole and all of her artistry, it kind of reminds us of the strength and resilience as black women. We all know throughout history, black women are always on the political forefront. Any type of anything that's happening in history, black women are always the ones to advocate for what's going on and create change. And so that kind of reminds me in my career that I have the power to like move mountains. Because if I see that in my history and my lineage, it's always a black woman who's changing things, then I have the ability to do so much for my people and everybody around me. So when I perform and when I go into different spaces, I kind of like think of that weight on my shoulders, but in a good way. just to give y'all a little bit of highlight of kind of what's going on in the music industry right now. Has everybody heard of Timbaland, the rapper producer guy? Yeah, we know. Yeah. So basically, he's doing this whole AI thing, and it's been said that he's taken artists' songs and put them into this AI machine, and now the AI is like learning off of a lot of people's art. And the first person to publicly call him out was a black woman, and she's been standing on that. And now, after some young black woman who obviously doesn't have as much social following as he does, now all of a sudden everyone's rallying behind her. But all it took is for one black woman to say that enough is enough for something to change. And then we see in hindsight, we have someone like Chrisette. She was basically blacklisted after she performed for Donald Trump. And even though I'm from Long Beach, we have someone like Snoop Dogg who did what he did, and we decided to forget. So I just want that to be a reminder of, like, as black women and as creatives, we have so much more on our back than anybody else has to carry. And thinking about Clora Bryant and Hazel Scott, I was recently reading an article about Clora, and I don't actually think she wanted to be a vocalist. I think they told her she had to sing. That her just playing her trumpet wasn't enough. Maybe Hazel just wanted to play one keyboard, but they said that she had to give more because she's a black woman. I can't be like Miles and turn my back away from you all and play and just stand still and just play what I want to play. I have to be 10 times better. I have to do 10 times more. When I walk up to the sound booth, they ask me, "Are you the singer?" No, I'm the trumpet player. You know, so just as a reminder that we just have so much more to carry, and that it's always a blessing just to be able to, like, share your gift. So
One little thing, I'm so sorry, just in hearing her talk, I think it's important. I love that the conversation is both asked from the context of, like, historical and black women in advocacy and with how they utilize their art to tell that story. But I love that the conversation naturally touched on history as well as what's happening today, because we are constantly in a political climate, I feel like, as black people, whether we are stepping into it or deciding that we've taken our time and we're gonna have our fans and we're gonna dance instead, which is also a statement, and let us keep being who we wanna be at this time. But I think it's also important to acknowledge those women that are still being advocates politically today. And so yourself in your own plight and your own demand of respect when you walk into a space that you're performing in, and to being identified and recognized as an artist, that is active advocacy in your design and your identity as a black woman in jazz. I also want to honor a few women that, you know, in the most recent political climates have also been doing that. Shout out again to my dear friend Layla Hathaway. You know, one of her songs during the first presidential era of Trump was like F Donald Trump. Like, that was a real popular viral song that Layla Hathaway was unapologetically, you know, talking about and people were connecting to. I want to shout out Lettucey, you know, who just recently performed the Black National Anthem at the Super Bowl on a night that we all know was as much of a political statement as it was a performance and a moment for California to stand proud because of what Kendrick was doing. She was also a part of telling that journey and saying how important it was that on the biggest night in media, right, that there was going to be a black woman singing the Black National Anthem with a choir of black young people who were looking up to her from where she's from Louisiana. So I just want to kind of put that in our consciousness too, is that it's not, as much as we have reverence, and Lettucey did her own project for Nina, right? She did, which she won a Grammy for, her tribute to Nina. She did as her own independent artist on her own label that she produced, right? So, and she's still a part of the journey, the activism, the advocacy. And so I just want to acknowledge that as we're thinking about the history, but also the present and what black women in jazz are doing to continue to make their voices known and doing its advocates. So that's it.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking and listening to the conversation here, and I think for me as just a music head, female vocalists have always been, that's who hits me, you know, the most. And I was on Sundays. I have a meditational run, and I just was thinking about all the sisters who sang in church, in my church, and the songs that they sang and how it hit me, you know. And I'm like, wow, you know, I just started shouting about on my little live and everything, you know. And as I'm listening to this conversation, I mean, my origins of music, I used to get into my dad's record collection, and I would get in trouble now. My dad was just like, don't join my records, but when he wasn't home, I was up in there, you know. But Sarah Vaughan, Dakota Staten, just so many women, you know. And it's hard almost to imagine that there's so much barriers to their art because they have so much power. And I know that I'm not the only guy that's like, okay, I feel sister, you know. Ledisi is one of my favorite singers of all doggone times. I've been knowing her for a long time. Well, she's really, really great. I want to know who are some of the voices, the politically active voices of this day and time. Who's out there? Because I'm concerned. Okay, I'm a child of the civil rights movement, and I would say to the young people in here, you know, what we're faced with, it's y'all's turn. But I would say, who is that? Like when I listen to music, and I'm probably just an old fart, don't know what I'm talking about. I'll take that one too. But I'm saying, when I listen to the music, I'm not hearing a lot of consciousness. Like when we were 60s and 70s, I mean, you had Sly Stone. I mean, we just passed away. Rest in peace. I mean, oh my God, there's so many artists that we can quote from that era that you knew that was the soundtrack to our struggle. Who's that one now?
You know what? It's interesting that you say that. I feel like the warfare that's happening on like young black kids is a little bit different. Like we're not necessarily experiencing it head on, but we're experiencing it through like social media. We're experiencing it through the classroom. So I feel like that's kind of why the music doesn't reflect that, because our experience is a little bit different than what you may have had during that time.
But you're wearing an afro.
Yeah, but then again, it's like I don't think kids are being raised the same way. Like a lot of my students are raised off of an iPad.
Yes.
They don't know. No one. People are like, I've been called Cynthia like for a long time. And some of our friends are like, who is that? And we're all musicians. So we all know Kendrick Lamar is a very conscious rapper, but to be honest, I don't really hear that much in music anymore. Yeah, unfortunately.
What do you think there?
I think I agree. I agree with her and her perspective. Because I am in like a highly global, mainstream, day-to-day world. Because you know my day job is the Grammys. I'm also a music supervisor. So to contrast that, I'm also in a very independent world. A lot of times looking for opportunities to put on independent talent on the projects that I also license, right? Where I put music in television or film or video games, things like that. So my day to night is very counter to itself. So a lot of times it makes me like even question what are you standing for with the work that you're doing, right? But to answer your question, I kind of agree with her. I do think that you have those that shoot through what more seasoned generations feel like they should be talking about, because the times are more obvious, and so there should be people, you know, that have more influence taking larger positions. I think it is happening, but I think it's happening subtly, and I think that's something that, as someone who's very connected to my parents, my elders, that were very active, more so in the 60s and the 70s, and what was happening politically for us, I think there is a lack of appreciation for the subtlety and how the current generation makes their political voice known, and how they utilize all resources that are not only challenging them, but accessible to them in ways that were different when we were more homogenized in how we used our art, even how we consumed it in community. It's just different, right? So I think maybe it's not something that you say that you're saying, but it does not mean that it's not there. It may be being consumed, or even the transaction of that may not be in the more obvious ways or the more familiar ways, right? So I think Jay-Z is another artist who has always been quite political and unapologetic about that. I think a lot of the political voice is happening around sexual identity, particularly for Black youth, particularly around Black LGBTQ plus youth, or particularly around Black trans youth right now. There's a lot of advocacy that's just happening by them standing up and writing songs with their partner of interest being named. Like that's bold, right? That's bold for what that means for today. That's not happening with these necessarily other backgrounds, but BIPOC youth are taking that stance, right? I think you're seeing that in entertainment. You're having the Brat and artists like that on national television with their partners, who at a time that would have been something that wouldn't have been as appreciated. They are choosing to love across lines that are not just about their Black identity. That's political, right? These are all examples of still being in the consciousness and being children and the grandchildren and the nieces and nephews of the movement that I think might just been different than what y'all, let me not say it, y'all thought it would look like, right? But it's the heart of it is still there.
Sure.
It's just we're also grappling with how fast the world is requiring us to constantly show up on a minute, second, as perfect. There's a lot in even the expectation of the world on the youth today. And so I would challenge you to just hug more, love more, and encourage, even if you don't see it. That's my challenge to the generation. I hope y'all receive that.
Well, yeah, I receive it, and listen, I wish my twin grandsons who I raised were here, and they would let you know that this is a daily conversation that we have about music. I'm always listening to. They'll call me and say, "Papa, hey, listen to this song right here," and I'm just really open like that. So, I need to, but I do need to, in context of this conversation, I really do want to ask the question.
And keep asking the question. That's how they keep being vocal about what they should be also creating about.
Yeah, well, there's three that I want to bring up. One she mentioned earlier, which was Layla Hathaway, and her latest album is called Vanta Black. It's the most blackety black album, that you're gonna hear. She deals with Black love, social issue, everything. This record is just her being proud to be Black. This is her Young Gifted and Black, and that's a very strong project. It's not there's elements of jazz, but it's really, an R&B with hip hop and jazz and this and that, It's just something else I'll talk about later, hopefully. Another lady, a lot of the women that are doing incredible things now, you're not going to find them in the straight up pop world. It's going to be the alternative world. And there's one lady that's been doing it for about 30 years now that I bow down to, and that's Michelle Ndigio.
Oh, yeah.
She is an all-around musician, songwriter, all of that. Again, her latest work took her 10 years as a long, heart project that was inspired by the work of James Baldwin. So she's reaching back. Her album's called No More Water, and I think probably partially out of not seeing certain things being discussed and whatnot in, or dealt with in current pop music, she and the other lady I'm going to mention after her are reaching back to the other folks that inspired us and that fired us up and that left us so many lessons, and yet so many people don't know who they are. If you ask a lot of young folks now, James Baldwin, blank, so that she's amazing, and you just go through her entire catalog. You talked about Lettucey doing Nina Simone. Michelle did an entire album dedicated to the work of Nina Simone as well. The last lady I'm going to mention is, she's a drummer, so she's very much on my heart and spirit. That's Terry Lynn Carrington. Multi Grammy winner, who has also, beyond her subject matter, I think her most recent project, she reached back to Max Roach and Abby Lincoln's We Insist project, and she's doing that over again in a new context with some new things and some original. But I think the biggest way that Terry Lynn has been a very strong presence is that she prefers to hire other women. She's been very adamant about showcasing other instrumentalists, vocalists. She brings people together. So many of her most recent projects have been like just an all-star cast of people, from Nancy Wilson just before she passed to Esperanza Spalding. In fact, one of the most beautiful, I just want to get this out just in case I don't get back around to it, but I wanted to make sure to share with everybody that the Hollywood Bowl, maybe about a decade ago, they had a tribute to Wayne Shorter. And this is the only time I ever got to see this group. It was Terry Lynn Carrington on drums, the late great Jerry Allen on piano, and Esperanza Spalding on bass. And they did a whole way too short set dedicated to Wayne. And I'm not even gonna mention who the opening act was, but they could have stayed home. And they should have given those three ladies a proper full-on set. I mean, my date and I that night, we just sat there with our jaws open because, and it was incredible music. They were completely synergistic with each other. But the other thing that I, as a man who loves women and beautiful women, it was so amazing to just be focused on these ladies doing their thing on a very high level. I mean, this wasn't, contemporary jazz, it wasn't smooth jazz. This was some real jazz inspired by Wayne Shorter. And then you see the eye contact and you just see all this stuff. And I was like, wow, I wish I could have had so much more of this while I was growing up. Just to see women that amazing. So anyway, that I just wanted to share though about Terry Lynn Carrington, Layla Hathaway, and Michelle and Degielcello are black women today that are very socio-politically conscious in their music, and I would say also in their activism. If you go to Layla Hathaway's social media stuff, she ain't playing every day. I'm not gonna say. Check her out.
Just here at the Long Beach Juneteenth.
Three that come to mind was already mentioned: Esperanza Spalding, Jasmine Horn, and Erykah Badu. I think they're all very conscious politically, socially. They center self-identification as women and as black women, and I just think they belong in this conversation.
Absolutely. Can you say their names again? I couldn't hear them.
Jasmine Horn, Erykah Badu, and Esperanza Spalding.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit. Let's go globally. If you know me, I'm all about building bridges of music, arts, and culture with Africa and African Americans. And my friends in South Africa, they have a vibrant jazz scene that my friends who are in South Africa are afraid that it might evaporate soon. So now there's a movement now of what do we need to do to revive and vitalize the jazz scene in South Africa. If you can you talk about the globalization of jazz music? And I'll give you a couple of women in Africa. I would say Sibongile Khumalo is someone who I discovered listening to South African radio and just fell in love with her voice. She's very much like Ella with it, but in her own way. And I actually went to South Africa, and I was part of this delegation for a music awards show, and I was in the VIP, and I walked past her, and I stopped. I'm like, wait, you're Sibongile Khumalo, and she just looked at me and said, oh, you know me? I could not believe. I fanned out like to the region. But talk about the globalization of jazz as you know it.
Globalization of jazz. It's really deep because other cultures, other countries so much more appreciate our jazz art form than we do here. I mean, when you look at the things that the artists, when they came across the water, they documented them. I mean, some of the stuff on Quincy Jones's Quest TV or things that pop up on YouTube or whatever. I mean, when Thelonious Monk was there, they recorded him everywhere, Belgium, London. But, you know, it's like, we have Monk. Monk is here, you know. I just think that the world really loves our music. And the other thing I wanted to say, though, is that, again, trying to keep it with women in jazz, it was a lot of international. I mentioned Carla Bley before. I'm not absolutely sure whether she has a German background. I'm just off the top of my head, I'm not remembering. But also there's Toshiko Akiyoshi, Japanese woman, a big band leader. Well, I'll just go with those two. I'm not really too familiar with any African female jazz musicians. I would have to do some research on that. But globalization, I mean, they love our music elsewhere, and I wish that we loved it more in its purest forms here. But the interesting thing is that, women in music today, and just everybody in music today, you cannot be really a jazz musician and make a living. You cannot. Tatiana here working with all sorts of other people as well as doing her jazz. I was just at the Blue Note Jazz Festival. Oh my goodness. Mahini Day, bass player, incredible. She did her own set. I mean, this one is like Stanley Clarke and Jocko, and I mean, she's incredible. No exaggeration. Then, 5 hours later, she's playing behind Willow. Saxophonist. Lakeisha, but there's who's the one that played with Beyonce, and she's on Mac Avenue Records. She has her own record deal. The name is escaping me.
She teaches at Berkeley right now. She teaches at Berkeley, right? Not Tia Fuller?
Tia Fuller.
There you go.
Thank you, Tia Fuller. Yeah, so I mean, there's an open thing that's going on that a lot of people play jazz because they love it. They love the camaraderie of it. They love the connection to history. But the way that artists in general, and including women, are able to make a living is by it being a part of the whole palette of music that they do. And that's different from Clara Brandon. I mean, everybody else back in the day, they wanted to do jazz. I want to be a jazz musician. I want to be like the guys, or I just want to play and I want my voice to be heard just like anybody else's voice in this art form. But today the way to survive is to be able to do a lot of things.
All right, we know Tatiana has to go and get ready for her performance here,
yes.
but I know you want to chime in on this one here as your party shot.
Oh, to circle back to the last question, Doechii is a conscious rapper. A lot of times, a lot of women in rap are just rapping about shaking their butts and doing whatever. And it's been a long time since we had someone who actually rapped about things that mattered. And she also has a really awesome song called Black Girl Memoir. And it's all about like uplifting black girls and like celebrating black expression. And it's actually the closing of the Tiny Desk. If y'all take some time to check it out. And she features each and every one of us and gives us a chance to like solo and do our thing. So that's super important. But yeah, globally, I recently got a chance to tour with Jazz is Dead, if y'all are familiar with Adrian Young and his organization. And the amount of love I received as we went across US and we went to Canada from strangers was honestly really alluring. Someone's like, do you have an extra mouthpiece? I'll buy it off of you. Can you sign it? Like, I could never. This is something that I spit on every single day. And I kind of learned the game at an early age. Like, no one wants to hear me play 52 choruses of Giant Steps over here. So, like, I had to adapt my career and my lifestyle to, like, playing the pop, playing the R&B, playing the hip-hop, and then, pushing a little bit of this jazz in here. And then if you think of jazz festivals out here, half of the groups are like some R&B groups, pop groups. But if you're going to play Montreal, if you're going to play Newport, you're going to hear people like Anissa Strange. You're going to hear Theo Croker. You're going to hear Malena Casado, who's actually on Terlin's up-and-coming project. She's actually an amazing trumpeter. Everybody keeps asking me, are you Malena? I'm like, no, that is another girl with an afro, and we don't all look alike. But, yeah, I think it just puts a lot of things into perspective being here. So it's like, I know my career is based here, but I know that there's so much more out there for me across the way. So that's what I'm shooting for, is to go as far as I can. Yeah.
Sure. All right.
Thank you.
Before you, thank you. And for all of our presenters today, thank you so much. Some library love for all of you, a little bit of library swag.
Gold in here. Money in here?
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Are we sitting in the picture?
No.
And then we'll get right back to it. Come on,
So should we
stand
we're
up.
gonna stand?
Stand.
Stand up real quick.
No bad.
Yeah.
Your bag.
Oh, my bad. No bad.
Go back. Tell me, go back. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Skedaddle.
Yes.
Get ready to put on.
And I cannot find her name for the life of me, and I feel so bad. But there's actually a Nigerian woman who has been Grammy award winning and Grammy nominated. She's out of our New York chapter, and she is actually one of our elected leaders. She's been a trustee, and she comes from sort of like, Nigerian inspired jazz background. And I can't find her name for the life of me, so I will look for it. I'll make sure I say it. But I also, wanted to also mention there's definitely influence, I think, in jazz, in all of the music that's kind of coming out of the Afrobeats movement. Now you're still hearing it, so it may not be like directly jazz, right? But if you want to honor women that are sort of doing it today and talk about the globalization of just Black women in their music, Tyla is kind of like a modern day, in my opinion, version of Sade, who is also obviously a representation of jazz's influence globally, and really how is it filtered through the lens of their experiences, their world, those dynamics. And so there's a number of other artists that are like that, and I think you kind of, again, you see that history of that appreciation of this art form kind of represented in today's, rinsing
Sure.
of that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But I'll look for the other artists. I'll tell
All
you
right.
his name.
All right. Diane, you want to chime in on this one?
Tim.
I was thinking of Tim's, but I wasn't, that's not who I was thinking of. But yeah, let's call out Tim's as well. I think definitely if you attend one of her show, it's definitely R&B like today, but there's the jazz influence on today's R&B is prevalent in an artist like Tim's.
Is Cleo Soul in that?
Cleo Soul, yeah, absolutely. I think Cleo's a great example.
I'm not well versed in terms of global jazz. I do agree with everything that Scott mentioned, just in terms of the appreciation of this art form outside of the United States versus here. But yeah, I'm not well versed enough to say anything really intelligent in response to your question.
All right. Well, before we get ready to go out and enjoy Tatiana Tate, I want to give the audience an opportunity. I'll take 5 questions.
She found it.
I did find it. I could you tell by my face.
Okay, go ahead.
Angelique Kidjo.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
of course.
So yeah, you had to call her. She's amazing.
Yes.
She's more
Oh
straight
my
up
gosh.
African, but
She's
she
from,
does
Benin.
crossover.
She's
She's
from
from
Benin.
Benin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? One of Tatiana's players has played on many of my shows over the years, and we were talking about fireworks music festival that I used to do in Exposition Park. There's 50,000 people out there, and I had the artist Lyra there from South Africa, and I was asking him if he remembered Lyra, and everybody did, and I here, over in South Africa, she's like Beyonce big. Like she's on their version of The Voice. When you watch The Voice, she's one of the judges. She's like definitely embedded into the fabric of music culture, over in Africa. And I think too, it's interesting when I listen to African radio, which is where I discovered the music. It's interesting that American artists who may be, I'm not minimizing at all their talent score here, but I'm just saying they may not be a Beyonce or a large artist here, but they're like, you'll have radio names here. Okay, Kenny Lattimore, all right. So Kenny Lattimore, he's steady here and everything, but in Africa, what? This man is huge. I mean, really, really huge. And it's interesting to see the global appreciation for our music over there. I'll take 5 questions from the audience. Raise your hand. Don't be scared. Go right ahead.
Hi, I grew up in these areas, and I'm old school. When I grew up, the artists were the community. And I like to hear how maybe you guys can help recreate that, because I feel like there's a big separation now, and it just breaks my heart. I used to go to see, Brothers Johnson's in the park. It was, Ike and Tina down the street. It was a common. Now I feel like there's this big gap between, and then I'm so happy to see, women being talked about in jazz. I just feel like there's just big disconnect from the community, and I like to see that. I don't know if we can get back to that.
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, I'm just going to keep mine short, but the thing about being a part of the board of directors of the Arts Council for Long Beach is this notion, I think I was talking about it earlier, this notion of public art, right? And when we have these conversations about public art, we're always talking about the murals in the parks, the statues and all of that. Art that is free and accessible to the public. The thesis for this very show today is called Culture and Concerts. I believe that music is also an art, and it also can be expressed as public art. High quality, professional artists, free and accessible to the public. Now, will the artist accept it's going to be a little lower pay? Maybe, but at the same time, you're giving back to the public and you're giving the people access to your music and all that. We have to continue to lobby. This is how I met Kiana. We were up there at the state capitol giving them hell up there about the funding that they provide for arts and culture. We have to have partners like the Long Beach Public Library to help fund these things. Have professional sound, professional artists, top notch. No disrespect to the local artists, put them on the bill too, but free and accessible to the public, high level, so that we can narrow that gap that you're talking about. I'm done. I can talk about this one all day.
Like today.
You want to take another question?
Okay, all right.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, of course.
Please.
So this is exactly what Lamar Park Jazz Festival is doing. It is a free festival. I work really hard to raise the money to keep it free because I am committed to providing equitable access to quality arts programming in my community in South Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles area. We also have year-round programming, low cost. I think I mentioned a monthly jazz series that we do on the 4th Sunday of every month at an art gallery in Leimert Park called Aziz Gallery. We're amplifying emerging artists. We have 4 bands who each have a 3-month residency throughout the year. They open up with a 1-hour set and transition into a 1-hour open jam session. The open jam session musicians are creating a talent pipeline for the emerging artist set at the annual festival. So musicians who come to jam have an opportunity to be selected to perform on stage at the festival. Right now we are just a 1-day, 1-stage festival. So all I have room for is 1 emerging artist set. As we grow, my vision is that we will potentially have multiple days and multiple stages. I'm not necessarily aiming to be a huge festival. I'm not of the belief that bigger is always better. I'm more about quality over quantity. But I do see the potential for at least a second stage and perhaps a second day. So this is exactly what you're talking about, is exactly what our mission is at the Leimert Park Jazz Festival. And I hope you all, before you leave, will pick up the flyer for this year's festival. Our headliner is Dee Dee Bridgewater, who will be, she's going to be presenting her project, We Exist, the Dee Dee Bridgewater Quartet. And we have this year, and admittedly, we have not always centered women artists, but this year, so every year we have 5 acts. This year, I'm sorry, we have 6 acts. This year, 5 of the 6 are either all female or the band leader is a female. So, and Tatiana Tate is on the lineup with her band, the Melanin Horns. So check us out.
I can add a little bit to that because I am a part of a organization that, you know, we're mostly known for our biggest night, which is Grammy night, right? Like, which is the biggest night in music. A lot of what we do is far-reaching from like a broadcast perspective, but we do have like 12 different chapters pretty much in every, and we cover all of the U.S., and each chapter is responsible for a number of markets. Mine represents Southern California, Southern Nevada, New Mexico, and Arizona. So we look after any of our members who are professionals, you know, in that space. The reason why I mention that is a lot of times, an organization like mine and the work that we do, we look to support locally however we can. Now, we are a 501c6, which people sometimes don't realize. That means we're a not-for-profit. Slightly different in the sense that our budgets, our sweat equity, our resources go towards supporting programs that are specific to our members. That's really the difference between us and like a nonprofit, which is public facing, right? But we do like to understand the value of our brand and our membership at a high level of professionals and do whatever we can to help support what organizations are doing locally, like the Leimert Park Jazz Festival. And in years past, we have supported other programming at Leimert Park at the world stage, just to bring the Grammy brand to what they're doing to help to amplify that. So I would say definitely, if there's anything that's happening in organizations you're a part of, similar to like me being here today, right? Like this is a part of the work that we do locally, is to help make sure we're amplifying by just having our presence and our access to those names that you're saying, bringing them in a more local capacity. So definitely, if there's ever anything that's happening, you know, you guys feel free to reach out to your local recording academy point, which is me and my team. And so if there is something that we can do to help support what's happening locally, we do want to know about it. We're not going to be able to say yes to everything, but we will always try to connect and support what's happening locally. So similar to your program and obviously in the stuff that you continue to do and how we collaborate in arts organizations.
The only thing I'll add is any kind of musical programs that are going on, like the Leimert Park Jazz Festival, or different things that are going on at the Grammy Museum all the time or whatever. Please bring your kids, bring your nieces, your nephews, some kid in the neighborhood. You're talking about community. There's not going to be a community for these things if kids are just staying home on their phones and playing games and whatever. Time has to be made for young people to discover and learn to appreciate, you know, their history, culture that's going on around them as we speak, and all of that. That's the only thing I would add. You know, it can't just be, you know, the grown folks going, having some wine, checking out some jazz. Bring some children. That's all I would add.
Well, y'all all right? Yeah. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to just also take a moment to thank our partners and sponsors. First of all, please give a big round of applause to the Long Beach Public Library. You know, in my professional life, I'm a sales and marketing executive, so I love making new friends and creating opportunities. I'm kind of good at it. So I was at this community meeting up at District 6, and the main librarian was speaking. And I kept raising my hand to ask a question, right? And she wouldn't pick me, And so somebody in the back, when she chose her to make to ask the question, she says, "Well, no, I want to give it to my elder, standing sitting in front, because he's been raising his hand. Mr. Johnson needs to ask a question, So I asked my question, but afterwards, the lady didn't know me. Okay, that's the whole thing. So I go up to her and I'm like, "Hey, listen, I'm on the Arts Council for Long Beach. Here's my card. Woo, woo, woo. I sure would love to do music at the library." She's like, "When can we meet?" And so it's really, really great to have people who are open to concepts. And when I came here for the very first meeting, I was really, really pleasantly surprised. I don't know if you all remember that the Huntington Beach Library used to do jazz shows over there. And guess who used to be the manager? Jessica Frampson back there. Remember that? So, that's just divinely ordered. So I just would like to thank the Long Beach Public Library for welcoming us in here to talk about music, to experience what we need to experience out here, out in the park. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'd like to also thank I actually get kind of emotional on this because the United Cambodian Community, the question simply was, how can we help? And I was like, well, dang, they were able to place, it wasn't a lot, but still it was a financial to support our effort on today. And at the last minute, and I really think about that community and how we in our different, listen, Long Beach is very proud of its diversity, but diversity is not easy out here, okay? And it was just really, really heartfelt that the UCC was like, "Greg, we got you. We will do what we can to help and support, this music and everything." And I just would like to shout them out. They have another happening over in District 6 there that, that's not here today, but, they're here in spirit. They were stepped forward to help, and just shout them out with a great round of applause. First, we have also the Arts Council for Long Beach. Let me just share, being a board member, Violet Brown is a legendary music icon. We are on that board together. It is an organization. Those of you who are from Los Angeles, you have the Department of Cultural Affairs in LA. Here we have Arts Council, which is a separate nonprofit, but we are basically a proxy city department. Okay. The reason that it's interesting that we as leaders of that body are in this library is that ultimately the city of Long Beach has recognized arts and culture as an essential service for the future, right? You're hearing Mayor Richardson talking about live music and all of this here. And what we're doing today is, just because we're pros, we've been doing this for a long time, who we are, but it falls right in line with what the city plans are as we look forward to the World Cup, as we look forward to the Olympics, and just looking forward to, we're still recovering from COVID, let's just face it. We and live music and advancement of music is an essential service towards that. And with the Arts Council, we learn a lot about how that happens. Where do the grants come from? How do we intersect with the different bodies all up and down the state to make sure that we keep artists working, to make sure that we're bringing art shows, whether it's music or art gallery or play or whatever. We're about that business, and ultimately that administration is going to come under the auspices of the library system. And you see this across municipalities and all of that. So today's event is kind of, divinely guided for us as arts advocates to partner with our librarian friends, to present a program like this. So, you know, Arts Council for Long Beach, you can give us a round of applause. And support the Arts Council. If you're from Long Beach, well, you don't even have to be from Long Beach, but if you're from Long Beach, support the Arts Council. We're a grant-making organization. We have if you're an artist, get on that artist registry. I can't tell you, get on the artist registry. Right? Get on it, because you'll find out when the grants are coming down. You'll find out news and information that is essential to your craft. Get in there. Don't be afraid of the Arts Council for Long Beach. Let's see. Kalimba Song Coffee Company and the Hannibal Media Group. That's me. Thank you so much. I have a coffee brand. Media company. This is what we do. I semi-retired after a long career in radio as a marketing executive. Moved out to Long Beach, and we formed the Hannibal Media Group, where we are a marketing communications company. However, we are centered in arts and culture. We have a lot of different presentations of art. We strive on our music thing to have immersive events like this, where the music programming is a little more substantive from just the performance. We want you to be about the music and live it. I think I've covered everybody. Daniel Alvarado, he was on the board not too long ago. That's my young friend here. He's providing our live stream on today. Tatiana Tate. And y'all, thank you so much. All right, y'all, let's go out and enjoy. Any words for you, Jessica?
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
I just want to add a couple things real quick. I'm sorry. Number one, I want to thank the Long Beach Public Library Foundation, who fundraises on behalf of the library and allows us to do these incredible programs. I want to thank Greg Johnson for putting together this Dr. Trees, this was an incredible conversation. You are such a connector and so inspiring. Thank you for doing this for us. If you have a moment, please check out these wonderful books on jazz. Get a library card. If you need validation, see Angela in the back. She'll validate your parking. And come outside and enjoy this incredible concert by the Tatiana Tate Band.
You said there was flyers?
Yeah.
You said flyers? Someone said flyers. Flyers for the Liver Park Jazz. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
right
here.
on the corner of the table where the little email sign-up list is. Feel free.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Where you been, my friend? You okay? Okay. You're still promoting our screening. Sorry, the craft research.
Yeah, no. At the for the awards process.